We believe we live single lives. For the most part, most people on earth are not spiritual or religious. We believe we came from mud. L. Ron Hubbard was very much, he hates psychiatry, psychiatrists, psychology, Darwin, anything opposed to spirituality, Hubbard, later on claimed to be absolutely against. And so, and even Hubbard would even say that the religious people on earth who, according to Hubbard, have been pre-programmed by our alien captor overlords, sort of spiritually programmed to invent these stories, the world's major religions, to sort of keep us occupied and to keep us from realizing that Earth is a prison and to keep us from seeking a way to get out of the prison, and that even the religions of Earth serve the purpose of helping to keep the population of Earth trapped spiritually, right?
Well, why is it, what's the explanation for the motivation to trap us spiritually and to put us on the prison planet? Like, so basically he's trying to conjure up an explanation for the fallen state of man, speaking, let's say, from a Judeo-Christian perspective. Yeah, and we have to address that because people do feel that the world is a vale of tears and that requires an explanation. So why, and you associated that to some degree with the fact that the Thetan spirits who were trapped on Earth were there because they were rebels or because they were artists. So but rebelling against what exactly?
So Hubbard doesn't spend a lot of time talking about this. But it would just essentially be that, just think of Earth as the gulag of the Galactic Federation. Anyone who's speaking out, anyone who might become popular enough to gather enough power in society to be a thought leader, an opinion leader, maybe one day lead a revolt, that anyone that Xenu or anyone like Xenu, I mean, his name could have been Bob for all that it matters, that this is just a dumping ground, a prison where people are going to forget that we were ever even sent here. No one will be coming to break us out. And it's really only L. Ron Hubbard and Dianetics and Scientology that for the first time ever has offered the solution to free everyone from this trap. Now, you mentioned Buddha. You might be interested to know that L. Ron Hubbard claimed to have been Buddha and claimed that as Buddha, the state that he thought he created, and you'll know better than I, is it Bodhi? Is it Bodhi? Do you know? I mean, I don't know.
Bodhi, yeah.
Okay. That he thought Bodhi was a permanent state. But afterwards, he learned it was only temporary. And he had to come back and create Dianetics and Scientology to create a permanent state that you would not...
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, so it's so interesting, because Hubbard was a science fiction writer. And this is such an interesting meld of archetypal religious idea and science fiction presumption. And it is also the case, by the way, that science fiction is and fantasy associated with it is extremely popular among atheistic materialist people like engineers and the more technically minded. Like, they get a tremendous amount of their religious education and motivation through science fiction and fantasy. And you can see that manifest itself in the, absolute cult-like followings of shows like Star Trek and Star Wars. And Hubbard was certainly part of that dynamic complex. I mean, I don't remember how many science fiction books he wrote, but plenty. And so you can see this as a more religious manifestation of a much broader cultural proclivity to turn this kind of mythologizing into something approximating a belief set. And that's certainly the case with Star Trek and Star Wars. You even see it to some degree in the Marvel universe, right? With the notion that the galaxy is populated by these cosmic beings. It's a recreation of the divine hierarchy of the Greeks and the Romans. Essentially, it's a recreation of the same ideas. And so, so I can see the archetypal rationale for many of these ideas. Now, there's a couple of things you touched on that are again temptations, I would say, but they also rely on archetypal structuring. So you don't get initiated into the mysteries until you've demonstrated your commitment to the religion. That's not something unique to Scientology. And it's confidential, so that makes it into a mystery religion. But there's also a really interesting appeal to narcissism embedded in it, because from what I've been able to derive from what you've told me, Hubbard is also essentially describing, he's presenting to his higher level acolytes the possibility that they're truly remarkable divine beings, right? Marked out by their ability to become potentially dangerously charismatic and to pose a threat to the cosmic tyrannical order. And you could imagine that that's also, it's certainly the case that the typical sort of nerdy engineer who's a Star Wars acolyte, let's say, likes to style himself in his fantasies in the image of Mark Hamill's character, right? And to look for a mentor like Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, and so the notion that Hubbard could, because you might ask yourself, well, what's enticing people farther down the rabbit hole once they've hit that threshold of confidentiality and the higher mysteries are revealed, and the revelation that you have this infinite responsibility to set the world right, but that you're also the sort of being that has that capacity because of your intrinsic specialness. You can understand that that's a pretty potent and heady offering, especially once you're in it. Why? Like, you were in it for a long time. And I mean, you said you were born into it. So, that makes it more complicated. But what element of ego do you think was present in what Scientology offered you that was psychologically attractive to you?
So for me, and the experience of someone who was brought into it, pushed into it as a child is greatly different than someone who chose to join as an adult. I truly believed in the most fundamental level of the Scientology story, that we are eternal spiritual beings, that these bodies are actually a prison of their own type, and that with enough Scientology auditing, you can get to the point where you can causatively and stably exterior at will with full perceptions, go in and out of your body at will. You could go create this to remote viewing. You could, that is essentially what Scientologists are hoping to accomplish, is to get to a point spiritually where you can be fully, stably exterior of your body at will and with full perception.